Welcome back to No Broken Legs. A new football season has arrived, and joining me in-house to talk today is the less than silent Bob to my less than strung out Jay, Jimmy Champ. Welcome to Lakewood, sir.
Hey, man, no place I'd rather be tonight. You know, when you're NWO, you're NWO for life. So we got to get going here, get this season started, man.
Yes, it is a new season. It starts in 2 weeks. We're recording this on Thursday, August 25th. So if anything calamitous happens in this next weekend, don't hold it against us. We've got 8 divisions to get through. We're going to start with the AFC North and the Cleveland Browns. And Jimmy, let's just get it the fuck out of the way. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson. He's going to be suspended for 11 games after he was only going to be suspended for 6. And he might have been suspended for none or the whole season. So part of the reason we didn't talk about this was because we wanted something solid before we really commented on it. So what were your thoughts when the Cleveland Browns actually made the trade for Deshaun Watson after the news had come out that he wasn't coming here?
I think the whole situation was weird. It's so much money when you might not have even really needed a quarterback. And once again, we do not believe Baker Mayfield is Tom Brady, but a healthy Baker Mayfield with the roster you could have built with the cap space you spent on Deshaun Watson is probably a Super Bowl worthy team. So just from the football side of it, the $55 million cap hit every year after this year, I didn't understand.
Yeah, and I guess that's to dispel one of the notions that a lot of people have is that the Browns should get Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, that's just not going to happen. They're not going to be able to trade for him because he's got a $24 million cap hit. The Browns are $50 million over the cap under the cap right now, but because of the way Watson's contract is structured and the way Garrett's contract is structured, like those two account for like $80 million on the cap next year. They're already $30 million over the cap.
Yeah, and I guess unless you could get maybe Kareem Hunt for Jimmy Garoppolo straight up, you really have no other assets you can get rid of because the team you have right now is pretty much the team you're going to have to try to roll with for 4 years during the Deshaun Watson period. And, of course, we have to segue away from the football side of it. And the mess of it I don't understand, and this has been my thing all along, has been he wanted, up until recently, I'm innocent, I've done nothing wrong. But then you offer an apology, but you've done nothing wrong. But then Jimmy Haslam is fine getting in front of a hot mic and saying, knowing what he knows now, I would still do it all over again. And I don't understand it. And I think it's difficult and hard to be a Browns fan right now because we know guys that love the Cleveland Browns so much they probably wouldn't care if Adolf Hitler was the quarterback if they could go to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they just want a Super Bowl. And I'm with you. I'm not on that train. I was overjoyed when they were out of the Watson sweepstakes and really felt like the legs got swept out from under me when they traded for him because this isn't to argue that Deshaun Watson's better than Baker Mayfield. That's not a case to be made. Deshaun Watson is a better on-field quarterback than Baker Mayfield. But for just the football reasons, Deshaun Watson has to be better than Baker Mayfield, 3 first-round draft picks. Was there a second in there or were the other ones third and fourths?
I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter.
No, and I said the Browns should have signed him after season 4 to the Dak extension, 4 at 35 with a 5th-year player option for 35. So so add in $15 million in cap space. I think the Browns are better with Baker Mayfield, 3 first-round picks, and $15 million in cap space every year moving forward than they are with Deshaun Watson. I'm disgusted by the off-the-field stuff. He has never taken, even his apology was half-assed, and as soon as that deal got settled, he's out there saying, I'm innocent, I've done nothing wrong, which could not have made the NFL happy. It does beg the question, if you've done nothing wrong, why are you agreeing to counseling, and why are you agreeing to the suspension and everything anyway, which, maybe he's just trying to get it away, but for somebody whose actions were described by former Judge Sue Robinson as predatory, and I believe the preponderance of evidence makes him look like a sexual predator. And it, to me, looks like he very specifically sought out amateur massage therapists to get them in a room one-on-one so that he could use his stature and power to get what he wanted without their consent. And that's my opinion. That's just what I think happened. I think that's what he did. And that is a scary thing to think about, not just as a quarterback on your team, but as a human being that's the face of your franchise. Like that just, I've been disgusted by all of this, Jimmy.
Yeah, and it's just, so much of it is so weird. Like I can understand any female Cleveland Browns fan that is having trouble still being a Cleveland Browns fan. And I can't understand male or female Cleveland Browns fans that are giving those women shit for not being sure if they can still root for the Cleveland Browns. So I know not everybody has the privilege or feels it necessary. I know not everybody that listens to us, including one other person in the room with me, finds it necessary to go to Cleveland Browns Stadium. I saw like 8 games during the Hugh Jackson era in the stadium. Like, I love being in the stadium. Part of the appeal of that stadium for me has always been the gorgeous women that the Cleveland Browns fan base has. Like, there are some absolutely beautiful women in that stadium. And it's crazy to me that it was just like, here's what we're doing. We don't care how this might affect you. Deshaun Watson's our quarterback now. Deal with it. Like, that's been my biggest problem with the organization, has pretty much been like, we don't give a shit if he did it. We want to go to a Super Bowl. We think Deshaun Watson gets us to a Super Bowl. Like, and I think that's my biggest problem with it, is you are right. Everything has been half-assed, poorly calculated. It hasn't made sense to me. I don't understand how we just, I'm innocent, but now I'm apologizing. Well, then what the hell are you apologizing for? I don't like it. I don't understand how the locker room dynamic works. I mean, I've heard a lot of ex-athletes talking on shows, podcasts like this, that have said as long as the team's winning, it won't matter. If Deshaun Watson is still Deshaun Watson and the team's winning, nobody's going to care. But if the team's losing, people are going to start thinking about their sisters, their moms, their aunts, their cousins that have possibly been in situations like some of these women, and then shit's going to get real bad real quick. And over the course of the last, eternity of football in Cleveland, things always tend to be worse. So
basically, if the worst can happen, it happens, and it's never fun. What did you think of the settlement? It is the largest fine a player has paid, so they get to have that tagline, even if it's not really that much money compared to his contract. And I have a conspiracy about this that I shared with you that I'll share after you give your thoughts. But they settle on 11 games after Goodell was pretty firm about wanting at least a year. How did you feel when that came out?
It still feels weird to me. The initial feels, it all feels weird to me because of the punishments we've seen handed down in the past. I mean, I think at this point, like, I know a lot of people have stood firm with, well, a Texas grand jury chose not to indict. I don't know if you know about the people in Texas. Not all of them give a shit about women's rights, and well,
that's also a different. We're talking about taking away his freedom as a citizen, and that has to be done beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's very difficult to prove when the offender in question set it up so that it was one person's word against another.
Right, but both of us listened to enough of that grand jury testimony to feel like this is not fully innocent. This is not a case of a bunch of women ganging up on him with just the way some of the answers were worded, situations that came about through all of this. So there's a level of guilt. Who knows what that level of guilt is? That being said, we saw what happened to Ray Rice. We saw what happened to Kareem Hunt. Alvin Kamara gets in a bar fight. He did beat the man up pretty bad, but Alvin Kamara gets in a bar fight. The initial suspension is 8 games. Calvin Ridley, while on the IR, places a bet through a company that is looking to get in bed with the NFL.
Yeah.
Where you'll probably see players betting all the time as promotional gaffes. And you suspend Calvin Ridley a year because all of those people embarrassed the Shield more than Deshaun Watson embarrassed the Shield. And I don't understand it. It just, that part doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand. Like, even if he was fully 100% innocent, all these women were just trying to extort him for money, this was still a horrible look and a horrible thing to be in the news every day for the NFL. And I don't understand how what he is accused of and probably did is considered less of an embarrassment to the Shield than the crimes of those other players. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I have really disagreed with the people that compare this to, like Alvin Kamara's situation, Kareem Hunt, or who's the other one you mentioned? I'm totally blanking. Ray Rice. Those were horrible moments, but they were moments. That was an individual act that happened in the moment, tempers flared, and anybody who's watched Law and Order knows that in New York they have murder 1 and they have murder 2. And the difference in them is premeditation. And that is what I think makes Deshaun Watson's actions so, as Judge Sue Robinson said, egregious. He planned this out. Like, this is a thing with him. Like, he is never, if everything was kosher with this, why has he not been able to give a real answer as to why he's had, well, it was 20, and then it was 40, and it was 60, and then it was maybe 120, and now we don't really know how many different massage therapists Deshaun Watson has had over the last 5 years. And when he sort of halfway was like, well, there was COVID and blah, 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 and it's like, yeah, but this was going on 3 years before COVID started. So what are you really talking about? And oh, by the way, you have professional masseuses that are paid for by the team that are hired by the team to be available 24/7 to meet your needs as a professional athlete. Like, it is a horrible look. I don't know how people can just sort of turn the other way on this. I guess that's just, that's something we see a lot. People love football. People want the Browns to win a Super Bowl, and there's no limit. Like, the ends justify the means in their eyes.
Yeah, 100%. Jimmy Haslam's eyes too.
Yeah, and that his hands are all over this because he had to guarantee the money. He's the one that, after he said he wasn't coming here, Andrew Berry went to Jimmy Haslam and said, "What if we do this and guarantee all the money?" And Jimmy Haslam had to sign off on it. That's how teams work.
And clearly, you wanted me to believe from the start as an organization you felt Deshaun Watson was 100% innocent. But if that was the case, you would not only be paying him $1 million salary this year. Yeah. You were fully expecting Deshaun Watson to be suspended for 1 year for some form of predatory actions against females. But I'm sure it'll be really touching to see Deshaun in his pink gear in October.
Nah, he won't be playing in October.
Oh, he'll still have it on.
He'll have it. Well, he won't be allowed on the sidelines.
That's true.
That'll be next year that we'll get to go through that just hypocrisy of nonsense. When the settlement came out, I heard Mike Florio, he's a former lawyer, he's an attorney. So when he's talking about legal shit, he knows what he's talking about. He mentioned how the league sort of has, how are they going to wield that hammer of, he has to sort of make the league okay with him coming back, like that this treatment that he's getting is going to be successful. And hearing Watson immediately come back and, basically retract his apology and say he did nothing wrong. The reason he did that is because he still has an open civil suit.
Yep.
And that open civil suit is, go read the depositions that have already been given. He's probably going to lose that. That's the woman who was on the HBO special. Deshaun Watson is in the deposition under oath, said she was crying at the end, but I don't know why. It's like, that's not going to fly in it when the preponderance of evidence is the standard that needs to be met. I think the league's going to hold that over him, and I think they really want him to settle that suit because I can't imagine how bad is it for not just the league and the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson, but just how bad is it for everybody? Let's say he plays 6 games. Let's say they even make the playoffs. He's playing in a playoff game, and then their season ends, and now it's the off season, and now we're talking about the civil suit again, and then he loses.
Right.
Like he has the like there's the opportunity for him to lose a civil case but still play games in the season while that's hanging over his head. That just doesn't make sense to me. I know they probably did this settlement because they wanted to push all this shit behind them and move on. I think they're going to really in the back room hang this over his head and make him show real contrition before he comes back on the field. And for that to happen, he's going to have to settle this other suit. Because if he comes out in public, and I know I'm kind of playing both sides here where I criticized him for not taking accountability. He can't, and I understand why he can't, because if he comes out and says, oh yeah, I did this and I'm sorry, I was wrong, then that gets used in his civil case and he will definitely lose that.
Yeah, but it does seem like the one civil suit that's open, she has made it perfectly clear that her biggest problem is the lack of remorse and the lack of the belief that he did anything wrong. And I think he could probably get away with that. No, I didn't do any of that other stuff. Okay, I did this. I'm sorry. I think he could probably get away with that at this point. Because I think that's her biggest thing is I think she feels like I need the world to know Deshaun Watson wronged me.
Yeah.
And he needs to admit that he wronged me. I am not out for money. I am trying to handle this the best way I can. I need everybody to know he did this to me. He is wrong. He was culpable in this situation. And I think that's what it would take, would be for him to admit in this situation, yeah, I did it.
Yeah. But that would mean he'd have to settle that suit. And I think that's what the NFL wants. It's going to be real interesting if he continues to very publicly profess his innocence even while he's going through therapy, because maybe the NFL just doesn't care. I mean, they haven't cared in the past. So maybe they just decide, we don't care. He's back. If he loses the civil suit, that's his problem. It doesn't make us look bad. Or they can just deflect and say, well, he was found guilty. We suspended him and he didn't play for more than a year and a half. I could see the NFL doing that and just moving on because that's what they want to do.
But I also think, until there's finality to this, it's going to continue to be a hot button topic. And
oh yeah, this isn't going away.
Yeah, and unless it's picking up what Mason Rudolph says to Myles Garrett, we know the audio equipment on the NFL sideline is really, really good. Does the NFL really want the chance of Deshaun Watson playing in a playoff game listening to the same chance he got in Jacksonville? Like
it's going to be bad.
It's going to be bad, bro.
Like I know Joel Bitonio mentioned it and said, he pulled the Cleveland against the world thing.
Kudos for an offensive lineman being an offensive lineman.
But we saw this with LeBron James. LeBron James likes to be liked. Deshaun Watson likes to be liked. And when he's booed incessantly, like and everybody will say, oh, well, back in the 80s and 90s, it's a completely different time. Social media, not just social media, but the expansion of sports media and the how many people are tuned in every day. People like us that have like regular podcasts. There's just people like us out there. How many football podcasts are out there? There's so many. So it's just out there constantly. I just wonder about not just Watson's ability to hold up to it, but the team in general. Like that's just going to wear on them all year.
And the thing is, that first game he comes back.
In Houston, by the way.
Will they play him against Houston? I don't know. Probably.
Of course they are.
Will the league flex it to the Sunday night game? Probably.
Oh, they probably will.
And it'll take, like, if Deshaun Watson would play bad in that game, it would take all of the international football media members who have humongous reaches with shows and podcasts and internet sites, all of about 5 seconds to decide whether or not if they should write is he playing like shit because he's not getting a massage and a happy ending before the game.
Yeah.
And it's going to be wild. It is going to be wild. Welcome to another Cleveland Browns season, everybody.
Yeah. What did I say last year when they traded OBJ? I was like, oh my God, they'll part ways with Landry and they'll put the whole clown show era behind them and the fucking circus is back in town, man. So that's probably more than enough on Deshaun Watson.
I would agree.
We obviously don't like it for the reasons we have stated, both on and off the field. But there are games that are going to be played. And the Cleveland Browns, with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback, are coming into the season. The win total for the Browns, when Deshaun Watson was only suspended for 6 games, the over-under was 9.5. Since that has become 11, they dropped the whole game to 8.5. If you were smart, like some of us, you took the under when they were 9.5. To win the conference, they're plus 2,500. To win the Super Bowl, they're plus 5,000. And to win the division, they're plus 45, or they're plus 450. To make the playoffs, the no's are favored at minus 170. The yeses are plus 220. Jimmy, it is 8.5. Do the Cleveland Browns win more or less than 8.5 games?
I project the Browns at 8 wins, so I'll be taking the under on the Browns this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I bet the under when it was 9.5, thinking Deshaun Watson would get more games, and I still like the under. 11 games with Jacoby Brissett, man. Jacoby Brissett is worse than Baker Mayfield was last year. And I think that's something 100%. That a lot of people don't fully understand, is his best season was worse than Baker's season last year. Do you think Stefanski will run the Case Keenum offense with Brissett and just really lean on in 2 of those games it was Johnson that he was leaning on because Chubb was out. But do you really think he'll lean on Chubb, Johnson, and Hunt?
I think a really smart NFL football coach would do that. I'm not sure what I think about Kevin Stefanski anymore as an NFL head coach. So, I mean, should he? Yeah. Should you probably double team TJ Watt when your quarterback's injured? Yeah.
Especially when you have a third string tackle in.
So, I mean, I don't know. Yes, they should just run the ball. In all reality, they should start Josh Dobbs. Is what they should do.
Oh, get the fuck out of here with that shit.
Listen, if you want to believe Jacoby Brissett is somehow better than Josh Dobbs, good on you. But the only difference is with Dobbs.
I can't say that with any conviction.
No, you can't. You cannot, bro. The thing is, though, if you play Dobbs, you can at least have an inkling of the offense you're planning to have with Deshaun Watson. Because with Jacoby Brissett, I agree with you. It should probably be run the ball 40 times and throw a couple play action passes. However far down the field his arm will let him throw it.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith. Although it sets up early easy. Carolina, even with Baker, not a great team. Their defense isn't very good. The Jets stink. You've got the Steelers. They've got a good defense, but...
Yeah, because Mike Tomlin always loses games to quarterbacks like Jacoby Brissett. You're right.
And they play Atlanta, but 3-1 for their first 4 games is completely in play. I mean, it's possible. I don't think they're going 3-1, but it wouldn't be shocking if they went 3-1, especially if they really leaned on Chubb and Hunt.
It wouldn't be, but I'm gonna run a little spicy here. I'm gonna upset some Browns fans, and I'm sorry, y'all. I'm still part of the dog pound. I'm still a Browns fan, but all your guys' talk about Carolina's defense is really bad. And Carolina had the worst offensive line in the league last year. Carolina drafted a left tackle and then signed 3 other offensive linemen. Their offensive line isn't as bad as it was last year. Better. Their defense is going to be better than it was last year.
It can't help but be better.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But they have some guys coming back. They drafted strong. And everybody wants to tell me what the Cleveland defense is going to do to Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield with a big-ass chip on his shoulder, if he's healthy, we know what those games look like. So, Ron Brown, I'm sorry. Baker's probably going to light it up week 1, bud. But I agree. I mean, I think you win the Jets game.
Yeah, I think Jets are bad, and the Falcons.
You beat the Jets, you beat the Falcons. But then I don't think you have another chance to sniff a win until the Bengals game.
I was going to say, even if they go 3-1 the first 4 weeks, Chargers, Patriots, Ravens, Bengals, that's probably 4 losses with Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, I think they're going to sneak the Bengals game, personally.
They do always play really well against the Bengals.
I think they're going to beat the Bengals and the Dolphins, but then you're at Buffalo versus Tampa. That's 2 more losses.
Yeah, I don't know if they can beat Miami either, although that should be a pretty low-scoring game. I'm just going to call it now, take the under.
That's probably a good idea. But I agree with you. This really should be Nick Chubb's chance to probably lead the league in rushing, lead the league in carries, lead the league.
He would have if he had the same number of carries as Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, lead the league in yards per attempt. Like, that's what Kevin Stefanski should do. He should just turn around and hand the ball to Nick Chubb. but we know Kevin Stefanski gets caught in this. I know what they know, what I know, what they know, what I know stuff. And if they came out, Evan, how surprised would you be if they came out the first play of the season against Carolina and went 5 wide shotgun with Jacoby Brissett?
I would be very happy about my under bet. That's how I would feel.
But it wouldn't shock me.
Because
it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
And I guess we both took the under. Let's talk about what we don't like about this team, and then we'll end it with what we do like about this team. Because there's a lot to like about this team. The biggest problem I have right now is, do I trust Kevin Stefanski? Does he have too much on his plate with being the head coach and the primary play caller, which is something that came up with the Baker stuff.
Right. Now, I do think, I mean, do we want to talk about that? We can. We don't have to.
We can. I was just mentioning it as an example.
But it's the truth, though. I mean, we watched that Patriots game. They look like shit.
He's in charge of the offense, but he's going to talk about something Myles Garrett did in a press conference instead of being in the meeting with the primary offensive group after they got their butts kicked. That is a conflict between the head coach and the head of the offense. And that just feels like you can talk to Myles Garrett anytime.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's just one of those things where it shows that I don't think he's focused on what he absolutely needs to be focused on and prioritizing the right things.
Now, rumors out of camp are he will be doing less play calling this year, which is probably necessary and maybe a good sign.
Yeah, I think we've seen it a bunch of times here. I'm going to call the plays, and it's like, well, you've lost control of your team as a football coach, and now it doesn't matter if you're calling the plays or not because everybody's fired and you don't work here anymore.
Right.
So that's a good sign. I think that's a good sign for Stefanski. I think he's got a lot of Marty Schottenheimer in him, Jimmy. I know that makes you sad.
Man, these people are going to listen to us fight on week 1, man.
Hey, Browns fans, I know you love Marty Schottenheimer, but he's just like John Cooper at Ohio State. He doesn't understand that some games matter more. He just doesn't. He doesn't, I get it. You want to be even-keeled, but there's some times where you got to kick it up a notch. And I've never seen Stefanski, he doesn't seem to be in that mold. Those teams in Minnesota, the offenses were the same way. They'd struggle, and you'd be like, how do you not score points when you have Thielen and Diggs, and you've got
and Cook
and Cook, and you've got the tight end that they had. I'm totally spacing on, but you've got all these weapons, and what the fuck is going on? Why aren't you guys playing better?
How do you have so many yards and so many points during the season, and then that playoff game against San Francisco? I mean, it looked like it was just a week 4 game for them. You're 100% right.
A majority of the time last season when the Browns needed to find that next level, they didn't.
Well, and we
said maybe they find it eventually. They didn't find it last year. Maybe they find it this year and they prove me wrong. But right now, when I look at betting on this team, I look at a team that hasn't really accomplished anything. What are their true big wins, and not big wins for a team that, never won more than 5 games for a decade, before Baker got here anyway. But, that the playoff win against Pittsburgh was huge just to get that monkey off your back. But if you take away the rose-colored glasses of how bad the Browns had been previously, and you look at them as, okay, I'm looking at them as an objective football team, and you look for their big wins, they just don't have any. They haven't really beaten any good teams that we would say, oh yeah, that's a team that could win the Super Bowl. They've beaten a lot of teams that are sort of like, if a bunch of things go right, they could win the Super Bowl.
Well, I think 2 years ago, I think the playoff year, I think they did. They had some very big marquee wins. I mean, the Cowboys win. That was a big game. At the time, I mean, Dallas was looked at as one of the premier teams in the league. I think there were some big wins there. And then last year, it was just underperformance all the way around. And Kevin Stefanski cannot be blameless in that.
No.
He can't be. It matters. It absolutely matters.
So another point of concern that I have for this team is the offensive line. I love Callahan, the coach. Bill Callahan is an amazing offensive line coach. There's absolutely nothing else to say about him other than that. I don't know who plays center. They lose Nick Harris. Treader just retired today, so he's not coming back. Conklin's coming off an injury. He's getting older. Man, Jedrick Wills, man.
Yeah.
They ran him out there when he was hurt, and he left a couple of games, and he's had some injury problems. Like, how do you feel about him, Jedrick Wills, as the left tackle right now? I mean, we'll see if Conklin can come back, and we'll see what Nick Harris, or not Nick Harris, Jesus, I don't even know who's playing center for him right now.
Well, there's a whole plethora of guys who might be playing center.
So with all those problems, it starts at left tackle. Did they miss on Wills? Is he just not the guy we thought he was going to be?
I don't think they've missed on Wills, but they don't give him a chance to play healthy. And that comes back to, we were very critical. Like, kind of, I'm just going to go back to Stefanski for a little bit. Just a comparison, and it's what we've had to deal with for the majority of our adult life. For those of you Steelers fans out there, people in the media, for us, last year when Mike Tomlin was questioned about would he go coach a college team, and he gave one of the better impassioned press conferences a coach gave last year. We immediately texted each other like the Steelers aren't going to fucking lose this week. No, because this is going to matter to him to prove a point. The point the Browns coaching staff tried to prove last year was we need guys to be tougher, so we're going to make them play injured.
Yeah, and that was a direct quote from Browns beat reporter Darryl Ryder, who had multiple sources within the team that told him that they thought Baker needed to toughen up, Wills, all of these guys needed to toughen up because these injuries weren't, they thought they were kind of, I don't know, playing Daisy or whatever. But like Jedrick Wills left both those games, and that, I'm worried about the medical staff of the Browns too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, but you could see when Wills is healthy, his ability to move is unstoppable, and he's a freaking mountain of a human being.
Yeah, he's a beast.
But we've seen him when he's not mobile and he can't move, he's a liability to the team. So let the young man get healthy and have your career left tackle. And I guess it's just that trust issue that we feel like the Browns organization doesn't have with their players. It's a trust issue the Browns organization hasn't had with their players since Kellen Winslow was contracting diseases in the locker room.
Well, they had staff problems even after that.
Yeah, when a player tells you, guys, I'm not 100%, I can't perform. If you're going to put them out there, that's fine, but don't expect them to perform at 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the problem was last year. A lot of guys played hurt, and people were like, what's wrong with this team? Well, half the damn team's playing hurt.
Yeah, you've had, Conklin was out for most of the season, so your right tackle was out. Wills was beat up all season, so that's your left tackle. Your quarterback had a non-throwing shoulder that wasn't attached. You had Jarvis Landry was injured all year. And I think that's a good segue into the receiving core, which is another point of concern for this team.
You would have to have receivers to have a receiving core.
Well, I hear a lot of people saying that Amari Cooper is, a bona fide number one receiver. And I don't think he's elite. I don't think he's elite as like Jefferson, Diggs, Hopkins, Jamar Chase, those types of guys. I don't think he's in that class. He's, I think, maybe a touch better than what we saw from Jarvis Landry at his best. I just don't think that's going to be enough because I like DPJ. I know you're a big fan of him. He doesn't win the jump balls down the field. He just seems like a third guy. He doesn't seem like a number two. I know they like Bell, the rookie out of Purdue. We'll see what he does. He played very well in college. Yeah, and he looks like he catches the ball.
He's played well.
Yeah, and he catches the ball, which is more than I can say about Anthony Schwartz, who seems to always get open because he's really fast, but in games he just doesn't seem to catch the ball. So throwing in Njoku, who I think got vastly overpaid, I guess they're going to give him more targets. And you have Bryant. They worked the tight ends a lot last year. What do you make of well, you just said you don't think they have a very good receiving core.
No,
do they have the pass catchers to get by for 11 games with Jacoby Brissett?
No, 100%. Yeah. No. And I think the thing to compare Amari to Jarvis is weird because Amari definitely has more probably talent than Jarvis Landry, But I'll take Jarvis Landry every day because of his toughness. Like the biggest thing with Amari Cooper,
he's an every down guy.
The scouting report for your number one cornerback going against Amari Cooper is, as soon as you're on the field with him, hit him. Take a 15-yard penalty early. He can be knocked out of the game mentally. Hell, we saw him refuse to go in a game. We saw him refuse. I can't get open, coach.
He's on my list of I'm not drafting that guy in fantasy football because he infuriates me.
Yeah, like he has all the ability.
So up and down.
Yeah, but he doesn't have that mental toughness. And it just is what it is. And I'm not trying to bash the guy because not everybody can be built like Jarvis Landry, and that's fine. But as a number one, it's never worked. 2 organizations have seen it doesn't work. Schwartz is so fast, but he's got to learn to catch the ball. I think Bell's going to be good. I'm a big fan of Donovan Peoples-Jones. But I do agree with you. He needs to be a 2, and there's not a 1 there. You did overpay Njoku just to not have him leave.
Yeah.
That's just all that is. And
I mean, they did get rid of Hooper, which is addition by subtraction.
Well, there were big hurrahs in the Champ household.
That dude ran like he had cement in his shoes.
Yeah, but I don't really know. What does Njoku do with more targets? I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
It's more of a focal point where defenses... He had so few targets last year, he wasn't really somebody that defenses were keying in on. If he gets a lot of targets early and he does start seeing some double teams, what does that look like?
Now, I would do a lot of the 2 tight end sets with Jacoby Brissett because he's going to need as much time as possible to throw the football, run the ball a lot, do delayed play action passes, let Bryant run that long crossing route that he's really good at. I think Brissett can make that throw. I think there are ways the offense can play well. I just think there are a lot of teams in the first 11 games that their coaches don't lose to bad quarterbacks, and Jacoby Brissett's a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
So one last part of the Browns that I don't like before we get to the stuff that I do like on this team is the defensive line. The interior of the defensive line is definitely the weakest part of that team, and the second weakest part of it is probably inside linebacker. And it seems to me that being good up the middle on defense is important, Jimmy. You've consistently wanted them to upgrade at middle linebacker. We've seen JOK is a stud. I mean, he's a beast. He played really well last year. He's probably going to be even better this year, but he's not a middle linebacker. They brought back Stewart.
Yeah.
Do they have the bodies in the middle to hold up so that the rest of the defense can do what it can do?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess it depends on the health of the back end because if the defensive backs stay healthy, it may be one of the greatest defensive backs.
It just might not matter.
Just ever assembled. It could be really good if by chance they can all stay healthy. I think the thing for a team to be great on defense, you have to not have a person that can be circled by the other team saying this is where we're going to attack. And starting Taki is that spot. You're still starting him. He is great in spots, but you can't let the other team have a week to scheme to go, well, that's where Taki is when they're in this cover 2 formation. That's where we're going because it works every time for the offense.
Yeah.
We've seen it over and over again. But I agree with you. The interior of the defensive line, and I guess it kind of brings us something not a lot of Browns fans kind of like to talk about or whatever, but the problem with the interior of the defensive line is Garrett and Clowney don't wreck enough plays for it to not matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we said last year, Garrett sees just so many double and triple teams. And I'm not going to sit here and say, a player should beat a triple team, but...
Hey, do you know how the
other guys on the line don't make anybody pay enough to make other teams not do it?
You know who else dealt with a lot of double and triple teams?
Aaron Donald and TJ Watt.
And then you know what both of their teams did? You know what both of those teams did? They then added a really good interior defensive lineman. That's probably a good idea.
And this gets to Joe Woods, but they also move those guys around.
They do.
We were begging this team last year to just put Clowney and Garrett next to each other. Just fucking do it. And you know what? Put the 2 of them together on one side, and then you can do a zone rush where you only bring 4 guys, but you have those 2 on one side. And why don't you bring JOK in on that side too? Because that kid's a beast, and he knows how to find holes in the rush. Yeah. So it's the same thing as with, not putting Chubb and Hunt on the field at the same time. Why aren't you going with why aren't you being more... running more options, like showing more options. They seem like a very easy team to scheme for because they're not multiple, to use a football phrase.
Yeah, but I will say, and I do truthfully feel like this, with JOK, we're assuming he's going to get even better than he was last year.
Yeah, I would.
And that collective, if they all play to their abilities and stay healthy, the collective of John Johnson, Ronnie Harrison, Delpit, Greedy, Ward, and Newsome, it just might not matter.
That's a really good secondary.
What happens in front of them might not matter. It could be that good, and that's what I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping Woods gets creative with all of that skill. Like, you know what? If the problem we have is interior defensive linemen and interior linebackers, then just put 2 more fucking cornerbacks on the field and do that. Like, it's not that hard.
They do need to stay on the field. Ward has had some injury problems. Newsome missed time last year. We all know Greedy's situation. Delpit has missed time. That leads right into things I do like about this team. And yeah, the secondary is awesome. Clowney and Garrett have shown that when the two of them are on the field together, that they can be playmakers. I don't think Garrett's quite the game wrecker as some of these other guys, but I also think some of that's not his fault.
Right, 100%.
So I was the one last year who was calming everybody down while the Browns defense was getting torched. And it's just like, just wait. They'll be good in the second half of the season when they've had a chance to gel, get to know each other. That turned out to be true. It'll be really interesting to see now that there's a year of tape. Teams have had an offseason to look at them, especially the in-conference games. It'll be interesting to see how, especially a team like Pittsburgh that you know isn't going to have a great quarterback, how are they going to attack this Browns team? How are they, because that'll tell you the Steelers are going to look for your weakness and attack it. Same thing with that New England game. And that's going to tell you a lot about where the weaknesses on this Browns defense are.
I can tell you right now, it's going to be Najee Harris one-on-one with Taki Taki. If you're curious, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be singling Taki Taki out to try to tackle Najee Harris over and over and over again. In case you were curious.
Yeah. Well, on the offensive side of the ball, I really like the running backs. I mean,
like 20 of them.
But that's sort of a question I have here for you, Jimmy. They have Chubb, they have Hunt, they have Dearness Johnson, who last year showed he can at the very least come into a game and run the football at 4 to 5 yards a carry. Can he do it for a whole season? I don't know, but he sure as hell looked like he deserves the opportunity to. So you have those three. They drafted Demetric Felton last year, and then they drafted another running back this year.
Who's looked really good.
Why do they have so many running backs on this team?
My man John Kelly at the bottom of the depth chart, too. I love the way he runs. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like, for a team that doesn't need a running back, they just like to acquire running backs. It's weird to me.
I really thought they were going to trade Johnson in the offseason or Hunt. I thought one of those two would get traded.
It's still weird to me that they haven't, but I think it does present an opportunity to get a little bit. You could get very creative with backfield situations, spreading these guys out wide. You could have a formation with 3 or 4 of these running backs on the field at the same time if they all make the roster. I mean, it's hard to say what the hell they're going to do.
They can't keep all 5 of those guys,
I don't
can
know.
they?
Like, I don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be interesting to see, especially with the offensive line health continuing to be bad. Like, you need depth at offensive line. I imagine they're only going to keep 3 active, and the rookie's the cheapest. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think Dearness Johnson has absolutely deserved a spot on the team. And I think there are teams in the league that could use a running back.
Well, they're not going to cut. They're not going to cut Johnson. He's too good.
Trade me. It still wouldn't surprise me if they end up trading Hunter Johnson. Like, that still wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
As teams get through this last week of preseason and go, damn it, we need a running back.
Yeah,
there's probably options there.
I'm still surprised Johnson didn't get traded. That just surprises me. Or Hunt, knowing that he's going to be a free agent after this year.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably anything else to add on the Cleveland Browns, Jimmy.
No, it's just going to be such a weird season. But this is a year for...
It's going to be a mess.
But this is a chance to see what Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski can do. Like, if you can get through these 11 games, close to 500, close to a winning record, I've got to change my tune right now because I don't think you can do it. I just think there are too many losable games in the 11 of coaches that are going to destroy Jacoby Brissett. I don't understand why that's the option. I'm not saying trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Dobbs has looked good, but there's got to be guys out there. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't understand the Jacoby Brissett thing. But it's going to be, I just think it's going to be interesting. This will be a chance for Kevin Stefanski to really show his offensive chops, to really create good game plans that just center around these running backs and the 2 tight end sets. That's what I want to see, and I think they can be successful with that. I think they've got to keep games low scoring, give Myles Garrett a chance to wreck a game, and hopefully keep that secondary healthy to let them pretty much lock down every team's wide receivers.
All right. Well, you heard it here. We both like the Browns under 8.5, which is actually the favorite at -140. If you're a believer, plus 5,000 for the Super Bowl, that is enticing for you believers out there. It has to be. That is definitely worth a $100 bet. I wouldn't make it, but it ain't my money. So you do what you want with your money. The team that lost the Super Bowl last year is the Cincinnati Bengals. They really came out of nowhere, and they are the second favorites to win the division this season at plus 175. They are plus 1,200 to go back to the Super Bowl, and they're plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl. So not a lot of faith in them to get back and win. They're minus 130 to make the playoffs, plus 125 to miss the playoffs. So teams think they will get back there. The over-under sits at 10 or 9.5, depending on where you find it. I have it at 9.5. Jimmy, do the Cincinnati Bengals win more or less than 9.5 games?
No, I don't think they get there. I'll be taking the under here as well.
Oh, we agree again. I'm taking the under as well. What is this, a Super Bowl hangover thing? Why do you think this team's not going to quite be as good as they were last year?
So for me, it's a lot of they want to. Well, first off, you've got to recognize the Super Bowl loss hangover. It's documented enough to be a real thing. So I think that's the first thing. And then secondly, there was a lot of wonky shit that happened for the Cincinnati Bengals to get to where the Cincinnati Bengals got. And then that being said, like openly, honestly, from their head coach, their offensive coordinator, their quarterback, and their wide receiver, a majority of their game plan is Joe Burrow do some crazy shit, Jamar Chase do some crazy shit, Joe Mixon keep getting in an open field, making things happen. I don't believe that's sustainable. I think now with all that tape from last year, I think the Bengals are absolutely going to get the old school Ed Reed treatment. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be a safety 20 yards deep. And I don't know if Joe Burrow has it in him to check down after check down. I don't know if he has it in him. I really don't. I see him continuing to try to force balls downfield to Jamar Chase, and I see it not working.
Yeah,
that's just how I feel about the team.
Every single time you went single coverage on Jamar Chase, they tried to go over the top. And I see teams trying to bait them into that with looks, with having safeties look like it's going to be single coverage and then running over as soon as the ball snapped. But really, this comes down to a few simple things. They had 10 wins last year. I know they improved their offensive line, but they didn't really improve their offensive line that much. But they got some guys that can play. Yeah, but I want to give them better.
I want to give them credit for doing it, though.
They saw a deficiency and they went after it.
Give any front office credit that can see the deficiency and go get the pieces to try to fix it.
So they have done some improvements there. The defense probably won't be as good. They played they played a pretty easy schedule last year. And that was something a lot of people said about the Browns the previous year, and we saw how that worked for the Browns last year. They have a much more difficult schedule this season, and they went 4-2 in the division last year. Baltimore's entire roster was hurt. Cleveland was super banged up, and Pittsburgh was on a down year because Rapersburger just wasn't any good anymore. So I don't see them going 4-2 in the division again. I also don't like their coach.
Yeah, you're fine.
I don't like their coach. I know he just went to a Super Bowl, yada, yada, yada. I don't care. If whatever happened to Kansas City before halftime doesn't happen, we're talking about the Bengals as, the same old Bengals, a team that missed their opportunity. So I don't have a lot of faith in this team. I'm taking the under. And would it surprise you if the Cincinnati Bengals had the worst record in this division?
Yeah. Because I think they're going to get to 9 or 10 wins.
Okay.
I think I don't see the Browns getting more than 8 or 9 wins. So I think to be the worst in the division, you'd have to be at like 7 or 8. and I think the roster is probably too good to do that. But I do think it's a tougher schedule. I think they play some really tough games.
Well, they get, you look at their schedule, you see, especially from week 11 to week 18, man, at Pittsburgh, at Tennessee, Kansas City at home. We'll see what the Browns look like with Watson in week 14. And then you get Tampa Bay, you get New England, Buffalo, and Baltimore. There's a lot of tough games there late in the season. And we'll get to them. I'm not huge on the Patriots this year, but when you play a bunch of tough games and then you have to go play New England, that ain't fun.
Yep.
Like, if you're a little bit off your game, Belichick will find a way to beat you.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with that.
All right, any final thoughts here on the Bengals?
No, it's going to be interesting to see, like I said, and that's like, for me, for my projections, for my fantasy football projections, I have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon down because I believe defenses are going to adjust to that. T. Higgins or somebody is going to have to pop as really good to keep Jamar Chase getting single coverage. I don't think it's there. And like I said, I think Joe Burrow likes doing amazing shit. I think Joe Burrow knows his arm talent, and I don't know if Joe Burrow is yet ready to check the ball down. Now, I think missing a year of the playoffs may change that in him, but I can see the regression this year, which sucks because, we want to see Evan McPherson on the sideline of every Super Bowl halftime show. So
that is an awesome way to end that and move on to the Baltimore Ravens, who are the favorites to win the AFC North at plus 145. To win the conference, they're plus 1,000. To win the Super Bowl, they are plus 2,000. To make the playoffs, they're minus 156. To miss the playoffs, they are plus 144. Their over-under is all over the place. You can find it anywhere from 9.5 to 10.5. When I got this in, I had it at 9.5, and I think this is a line that moved because of the Watson suspension news.
Yeah.
Jimmy, do you think the Baltimore Ravens win more, or how many games do you think they win, depending on where they find it? If they get it, let's say the higher number is 10.5.
So the number would have to be 13.5 for me to take the under, because I think the Baltimore Ravens win 13 games this year. I don't think ever, because they lost so many players in preseason last year, I don't think people realize just how good of a team they had on the injured reserve. Like, they had superstars.
Basically, their entire secondary was out.
They had superstars at every position on the IR. I think J.K. Dobbins is going to come back and be a beast. I think
he's dinged up again. We'll see when he gets back on the field.
I still don't think it matters that Lamar can throw outside the numbers because you got rid of Hollywood Brown. Just throw inside slants to Mark Andrews all day. I think this team is going to come back with a fury this year. I think they're going to win the division. I believe I either have them going to the AFC Championship game or at least the second round of the playoffs. I think they're going to be really, really good. I just think they're the best team in the division. I think they have the least amount of holes, though they have the most continuity. They're really the only team, because you could say the Bengals don't really have any issues going on except for the fact that you lost the Super Bowl. Like, I think the Ravens have been the least talked about team other than Lamar wanting to represent himself, which is some weird shit. But if they are all healthy, I think they're the best team in the AFC North by a large margin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they win the division. I like the over I bet it at 9.5. I still like it at 10.5. Thank you for the extra point before the Watson suspension.
Right, yeah.
I wrote my notes on this where they won 8 games last year with their entire team hurt.
Yeah.
Lamar wasn't the same. And, for all the people that talk about...
And that was playing a hard schedule last year.
Yeah, they did play a very hard schedule last year. And I know a lot of people out there have talked up Huntley. He looks like a pretty good backup. He looks like he still has a ways to go to really be the type of quarterback you can win a lot of games with. But Lamar's back. I wrote, Lamar has something to prove. I think he does. I think this team has something to prove after last year, and I think they do it.
Yep.
I think Jim Harbaugh is an excellent coach.
Yep.
They're... Even when everything went wrong for those fuckers, they went 8-9 last year.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, there's no reason... Like, if the Browns had been inflicted with those same injuries over the length of the season, they probably don't even get to 5 last year.
Yeah.
Even if Baker was healthy.
Yeah.
Because I'm just amazed by what they do in Baltimore. They do it every fucking year. It's infuriating. I hate it, but I will bet on them because it's a good way to make money. Do you like Lamar to win another MVP?
I do not.
Yeah, I don't either. I just think everybody's really hot for Justin Herbert right now. We'll get to the AFC West eventually, but I think Josh Allen is another guy, and Patrick Mahomes. There's like the fucking AFC is
I think the
loaded.
options. I mean, for me, obviously, as we go through divisions, we'll get into some prop bets that I'm sure we both feel comfortable with. But for me, if the Colts are as good as everyone else thinks they are, I think Jonathan Taylor might have a legitimate shot to be MVP. And if it's a quarterback, it's either Josh Allen or one of the guys out west, whichever one of them it is.
Whoever ends up winning that division is going to have a really good case to be MVP because that division is just monstrously stacked.
We know how much the media loves Russell Wilson. If he goes out and makes the playoffs,
he's never gotten an MVP vote.
Exactly, this could be the change. They know they haven't voted for him, so.
Oh, another reason I like Baltimore to win the division, their schedule's not onerous.
It's not. They have some.
They have a few games. They play Buffalo. The Denver game might be tough. The in-game, they have Tampa. But they have a lot of teams that I look at and go, yeah, a good Baltimore team probably beats them. The other team that infuriates us every year with their inability to have losing seasons regularly is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They made the fucking playoffs last year. How?
I have no idea.
Because I have eyes and I watch Ben Roethlisberger play and he wasn't any good.
No, he wasn't.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, their over-under sits at 7.5. It's even money for the over, -110 for the under. They're plus 9,000 to win the Super Bowl, which if you want to throw your money away, go ahead. They're plus 1,000 to win the division, plus 5,000 for the conference, -360 to miss the playoffs, plus 350 to make the playoffs. At 7.5, do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers win more or less than 7.5 games?
No, I project the Pittsburgh Steelers at 5 wins right now. I don't see 8 wins on their schedule. I don't believe in either of the 3 people that they could possibly play at quarterback. 2 of them have looked okay in the preseason, but as we've said over and over again, it's preseason. You should look good if you're an NFL caliber player, but that doesn't mean when you're playing other guys' ones that you're going to look good. They also, I think the Steelers have kind of a rough schedule as they get a playoff schedule. I don't like their quarterbacks. There are spots on the defense that I think if TJ Watt isn't phenomenal, the defense is going to struggle a little bit, but I just don't think they're going to score enough points. And that's just my personal thought. Now, I hate to say it because I actually like the rest of the roster. The offensive line is still patchwork, but if one of these 3 guys happens to play well at quarterback, then they probably go back to the playoffs because the rest of their roster is that good. I just don't think they're going to get production at quarterback this year.
I think that's a fair criticism. Am I crazy to think that Trubisky's at least as good as Roethlisberger was last year?
No, but no.
I mean, he's going to be throwing. Just a key fantasy tip, man. Najee Harris is going to catch so many checkdowns for Mitch Trubisky and screens and just little short passes. It's going to be crazy. He's going to have 5 to 7 receptions a game.
Yeah, Najee Harris will probably lead the NFL in touches this year.
So if you can get him in your fantasy league, I think he's going to put up crazy numbers. I'm with you. I love everything about this team except the quarterback. I see them in the 7 to 9 range. I'm taking the over.
All right.
I think this team's going to get to 8 or 9 wins. They do have some tough games, but they are a team that just. I'm looking at their schedule
You're
now,
looking at this, and I just don't see where you're getting 9 games, bro.
Look, I think they're going to beat Cleveland in week 3. They're going to beat the Jets. They're going to beat Atlanta. I think they're probably going to beat Carolina. So there's 4 wins right there. I think
just somehow, some way, it's going to happen.
I think, but okay, so you also have New England, Miami, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Cincy, Indianapolis, and Vegas. That's 7 games right there. They're not losing all 7 of those games.
I don't know. All 7 of those games, they might have the worst quarterback.
Well, when has that ever been a problem for Mike Tomlin?
Well,
I think they're going to be able to get enough out of Trubisky early in the season before. I think we're going to see Kenny Pickett at some point because Trubisky's probably going to get hurt.
Yeah,
and they are nobody wants anything to do with Mason Rudolph, so you just don't have to worry about that. I think the big game for them is Week 9. They go to the Dolphins. That's the game that I really circled when I was doing these over-unders, and that's the game I think they win, and I think that's why they go over. So and I'm also kind of making this prediction based on when in doubt, bet on whatever will make Cleveland Browns fans the absolute most miserable. Because if that's how you've bet for the last 20 years,
you've worked out.
You've made plenty of money.
You've made a lot of money.
You've made plenty of money. You've won plenty of bets. If I'd had any income over that time, I'd probably already be retired. But you don't stack paper betting like 10, 20 bucks a hand, man.
No, sir. No, you do not.
You can pay rent and stuff, but you ain't retiring on that. I actually think Pittsburgh at 8 wins could be the worst team in the division.
Yeah.
Like I envision a scenario where maybe the Browns, I don't think the Browns are going to get there, but like the Browns could get to 9.
Yeah.
The Bengals and Baltimore could easily get to 9-10 wins. Like, could this be a division where Pittsburgh goes 8-9 and they're in last place? Like, I think that's in play.
Yeah.
So I trust Tomlin. I guess that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to trust Mike Tomlin.
But up until the last year and a half, he's had a premier quarterback leading the charge for him his whole career. Yeah,
and it'll really, if TJ Watt stays healthy and that defense continues to play like it does, I think they're going to be able to win some of these games because we saw Philadelphia's offense against a good defense. They can't do anything.
Oh, they will be this year, though.
Okay.
They will be this year.
Okay.
You're going to like, when we get to the NFC East.
Oh, when we get to the NFC East.
Oh, bro.
Any final thoughts here on the AFC North before we wrap up this edition of the podcast?
No, like I said, I'm excited to see what Kevin Stefanski is able to do in these 11 games and probably for the whole season, how they navigate it. Because, does your record in the 11 games determine what you do with Deshaun Watson? Probably. I'm very curious to see how it goes. I'm very curious to see if superstars like Myles Garrett get on the field week 1 and say, damn it, I'm tired about all this other bullshit. I'm going to make the headline, the Cleveland Browns beat the shit out of the Carolina Panthers. And I'm curious if they can do that with a coach that coaches every game like it's the same.
Yeah.
Because Baker Mayfield ain't going to think this is every game's the same.
No.
So
everybody like to talk, well, you didn't see anybody defending Baker, and it's like, well, actually, you some guys did defend Baker and said he was a great teammate, even though I guess those don't count.
You're right. But
a lot of the guys in Carolina are talking about the fire that he has and his desire to win, and it's infectious because those guys in Carolina are used to fucking losing.
Yeah. So, like I said, I am just curious. I think I don't think in the North this year you'll see a team like Cincinnati kind of run through the division. I think it's going to be a lot of win at home, lose away, win at home, lose away. I think you're going to have a lot of that. And I do think the Baltimore Ravens are, if healthy, the best team in the North. I love their roster construction. And I agree with you. I think Lamar absolutely has something to prove. If Lamar goes out and has a great year, what the hell does that do to the next quarterback contract? Like it's
well, they offered him more than Kyler Murray, and he said no. And I heard 92.3 once a week has beat reporters from each city. They go around the AFC North, and consistently the Baltimore beat reporters have said he wants more than Deshaun Watson, and he has an MVP, which Deshaun Watson doesn't have. I think they have the same number of playoff wins, but he also doesn't have any off the field issues.
Yeah.
So he is totally within his rights to ask for more money because he's a more accomplished quarterback at this point.
Yeah, so
I think he looked at the Kirk Cousins thing and said, yeah, because I think even if he gets hurt, somebody's going to back up the Brinks truck for him.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's going to be a Kevin Durant situation. Fine, you miss a year. Fine, we'll sign you.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm excited. I'm excited for the AFC North. I do think for a lot of people, I know a lot of Bengals fans out there, Who Dey Nation, I know they're expecting immediate, sustained success. I think you should temper those expectations. I think you really have a hard schedule. You've got 2 stretches that are really tough. I think defenses will adjust to Jamar Chase. I think Joe Mixon is a year older. We'll see what kind of growth Joe Burrow gets, but I'm excited for the AFC North. There should be some fun games.
I guess one of the things that I'll be interested to see if it's said all year is, the Cincinnati Bengals really miss Ogunjobi.
Right.
who I don't think is a star, but when he was in Cleveland, he was good.
Yeah.
And when he was in Cincinnati last year, he was okay to good.
Yep.
And I think he's an okay to good player. And if you've got guys around him, that's okay because he's not going to kill your cap.
Yeah.
So I think, again, the interior of that Cincinnati defense, can they hold up like they did last year? I think Baltimore's on the warpath. I think Pittsburgh's going to be on the warpath too with, a lot of Ewing theory with Roethlisberger retiring. I just don't know what the Browns are going to look like. It could turn ugly real quick, especially if Brissett is bad.
Yeah.
Like, it could get really bad really early.
I don't think he has a leash.
I guess a final question. If, I said the Browns could go 3-1, it wouldn't surprise me. What if they're like 2-4? Are there calls at 2-4 for Stefanski to be fired?
No. Do
you think everybody gives him a pass until Watson comes back and they'll judge him based on? Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. 100%. I think that's the fair. Reasonable way to look at it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people are going to be reasonable about this.
No, I think at 2-4. I think at 2-4, then Dobbs is the starter.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think Brissett has any kind of leash. Personally, but I feel like a lot of people did not watch Jacoby Brissett.
One final question: when he's cut. Because that's what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. San Francisco is going to cut him on the last roster cutdown day because they're not going to pay him $24 million this year, which means Garoppolo will be a free agent. He can sign anywhere for any amount. Do you think the Browns make an offer to him? They might not get him because I think I just look at Seattle and I'm surprised Seattle didn't make a bigger run at Baker. Geno Smith and Drew Lock are your quarterbacks, and they're not good. So I think they're probably going to offer more money than the Browns would for Garoppolo, but do you think the Browns at least make an offer to Garoppolo?
Well, yeah, because you'd be looking for 1 year, sustain some success until Deshaun Watson can play. You don't need him to win a playoff game. So you need him, you need him to play in the games he's really good in. So I would absolutely make an offer for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, when do you think he would be ready if they did that?
I think
he'd be ready by week 4?
I think he'd be ready by week 4, absolutely.
I think you would have to do that then if you can get him for a low enough amount that you're comfortable with. You got to save your cap space for next year because with the 11-game suspension, Watson's contract counts this year. Yep. So that second year, things don't get pushed back.
Nope.
So that'll be a big talk of town. I don't think Garoppolo winds up here. I'm not even entirely sure the Browns want to give him an offer. They seem to be getting behind Brissett. I know that Stefanski said that Brissett's been solid, which, okay. So, Jimmy, those are our thoughts on the AFC North. This is our first of 8 divisions in the NFL. Thank you for joining me in-house today. It has been a pleasure to do this again with you, sir.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I also want to thank you for listening. Please drop us a like or a subscription. We will continue our preview of the NFL season with the AFC East. That will be coming out shortly after this podcast. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. We are No Broken Legs.